As much as these episodes are about the guests, they are also in a way about myself. For me, these episodes are an exploration of my own fears and questions about what the future may hold for myself. And with each new episode, I try and explore a topic that in some way will inspire others, but they also always seem to inspire me more than anything. This episode, while not about myself, is an episode about one of the few people that actually believed in me from day one. This is Revolue's story of how he became the artist he needed to be to find happiness, and how his story inspired me in more ways than I can count. These are the stories that shape art. I'm Jacob Johnson, and this is the Myartisreal podcast, episode 27, Revolue. Right after the break. This episode is brought to you by our Patreon page. This podcast takes a lot of work to create, so if you find any inspiration from it, please consider signing up to our Patreon page to receive bonus episodes and so much more. You can find us at patreon.com/myartisreal. Thank you.
I'm Revolue. I'm from Brazil, São Paulo, one of the biggest cities in the world, very chaotic, and this is where I get my inspiration. I'm based here. I travel to trying to get more inspirations from the outside world, but I like to be here and use like the city as the main point for my creation. I'm 36-year-old now and painting for like professionally about 20 years.
I have become friends with a lot of artists over the many years of curating, but Revolue is by far the artist I have been friends with for the longest, and someone who I not only admire and look up to, but an artist who serves as a significant point in my own origin story. But while I've only been curating for 7 years, Revolue has been painting much longer. So come along with me as we go to the chaotic city of Sao Paulo and discover what turned Revolue into the artist he is today. While growing up in Sao Paulo, he was able to see a wide range of different social classes and cultures all within just a few blocks, and it really shaped the way that he viewed life growing up.
But I lived in a suburb that my street I had people who had more money than me or some people who doesn't have much money. So I could work in my personality and my behavior by doing this kind of transition, and it helped me. It's also my release, I like to talk about luxury and rubbish. And when I say rubbish, I don't say it in a negative way. I just say that we are part of something that we have two sides of it, like the luxury one and the rubbish one. And I think I could make this kind of transitions in a good way, so I can talk to anyone. I could be on the streets, having fun with my friends without any kind of toy or expensive things. And then in the weekend, I was with some friends in a good house or having fun in a different atmosphere. So where I came from, and especially Brazil, São Paulo, this is the mix of culture that we see like normally on streets, And in my suburb, we could see it like very, very clear on streets. And it helped me a lot, man.
While he had friends from all walks of life, he was comfortable with not having much. As long as he could draw them, he was content. To have fun, he always had to rely on what he had plenty of, and that was creativity.
I have to be create. I have to use my creation and my inspiration to play from what I have, So, for example, I always was playing with like some pencils, some markers, some crayons around, and that's everything I have at the moment, and I could use it for everything, I was painting all the time, doing some sketches on paper. Doesn't matter if the paper is good or if it was a sketchbook or a nice paper. I was always like drawing around with some, like paper that my grandma used to give me or my father, my mom. So yeah, I never care much about the quality,
And do you remember at what age you started to kind of make art?
Man, I can. Yes, I remember like since I'm like 2 years old or something like that, because I used to spend time in my grandmother's house. I was always like asking her and my mom, oh, what should I draw now? Oh, draw a dog. After 5 minutes, oh, what should I draw now? Oh, draw a car. It was all the time I'm asking people for like any kind of, like subjects or something to draw. And I remember that since I was like very, very young, happy when someone came to me and gave some kind of, like papers with crayons. Man, it was very, very like happy days.
Revolue always seemed older beyond his years, and this is a lot due to the fact that he had an older brother who was 9 years older than him. So he was always hanging out with him and his friends, learning what he could.
I have a brother, 9 years older than me. So I think it pushes me a little bit to grow and to break my own, because it was different generations. So I had to talk with like my brother's friends, and it was totally different conversations, behaviors. So I had to, break my own like kind of feelings to talk and to be around like my family.
Was it was it tough having a brother so much older than you?
Yeah, I would say like in my case, no, because my brother was a good person. Like of course we had this kind of 9 years is it's too much, man. Like it's so different. Like because when I was like learning, how to like write, he already knew it. So he was like a second father, but like a close father. Like this brother and father at the same time. So for me, it was a good experience. I could know something that I would learn maybe 5 years later, and I already knew it because of my brother. So even like for painting, he's not a good painter, of course. He's not a good artist as well. He had his lessons, his art classes, and I could know, like, for example, more about tools, like new tools, new kind of, inks and mediums that I would know maybe just 5, 6 years later. So I had this contact, and it was very, very useful for me.
He would continue to make art as a kid, but wasn't introduced to street art until he was in high school when a friend took him with him to go do some painting. Okay, so can you tell me exactly when and how you got introduced into street art?
When I was 15, maybe kind of when I was in high school, I met these friends, and they were doing these things on streets, doing some stickers and some kind of tagging around city. And I met this friend and he said, "Oh, can you help me to create my crayon?" I said, "Oh, why don't you just don't go in a store and buy it?" He said, "No, because I want to make something that would be like in a better quality." So it was totally handmade. So it was a lot of crayons with some kind of bee wax and some kind of like oil. And so I was helping my friend to do something that he was using to street. So yeah, I met this street culture, like spray paint, tagging, stickers, all these things we see on streets when I was like this age, like 15, 16 years old.
At first, he would just spend time with these street artist kids, getting a feel for the scene. But it didn't take long for him to start getting involved in the art making himself, and soon the Revolue name was brought to life.
Oh yeah, first I start to just walk with them, to go out, tag or something. Create my own sticker, which was like a fist, and after that I start to walk with them and sticking my sticker around with this fist. And then people say, "Oh, we should create a name, man, because you don't have a name." Oh, that's why I came with Revolue. Revolue means revolution and evolution. So by this age, like when you are 15, 17, you always want to make this revolution. You want to change the world. You want to make your, like your ideas, you want to put like outside. So I create this Revolue name with this sticker of this fist.
It's funny how these names come to us sometimes. Like when you try and sit down and figure out a podcast name or a business name, and it feels so frustrating, but often the best names just somehow come to you. Much like Revolue simply put two words together that he liked the sound of, I simply put together the name My Art Is Real. It's more of a statement. I was making digital art at the time, and I felt this feeling of people not respecting digital art the same way as they respected physical art. And so I just had this statement of my art is real. Next thing you know, it just became the name of this brand or whatever it is. Next thing you know, it just kind of stuck. So, with his new artist identity forming, he had to start figuring out what exactly he was going to do with it.
Think about what do I want to do, you know? What do I really want to do? Not things that my brother wants to do or my family wants me to do, you know, what I really want to do. And I start to not break all the rules, you know, but trying to put my mark on, you know, the place I normally used to go. So with that, I start to, I think, thing that makes me very, uh, like, it changes me. I think it was the Fight Club movie, for real, man. When I first time watched that movie, you know, I didn't feel much about, oh, there is so aggressive, a lot of people fighting. No, I could see deeper. I could see like, if you not do the things we want to do, we're not gonna have a good life, you know. So this movie makes me to be the Revolue that people knows like from a long time. So I create this Revolue name based on that culture, you know, about do it yourself, trying to put your mark on society. It doesn't have to be in an angry way, you know, into this anarchist way. Of course, I had this little time in Spain into the anarchy things, but of course, we are young, you know, we are like teenagers. We want to make like really good, expressive things. But I think in the end, the most of it was like, do what you want to do, you know, like put your mark in society and show what your skills are or what you want to do, you know.
So, while Revolue knew he had to chase his dreams if he was truly going to be happy in life, he had no idea that you could be an artist for a living, so he had to do something to make an income. He followed his father's advice and went into college to become an accountant.
Before I start thinking about it, my father recommended me to study accounting things. So I said, okay, let's try. Why not? You know, but it wasn't something that I really want to do that. In the same time, I didn't know that I could be an artist. That's something that I try to tell people today. You know, like you can be an artist because I didn't have any mind when I was like, you know, like on my 20s or on my 18s or whatever because I didn't have this feeling, oh, I can be an artist, you know? So I had to do these accounting things, go to university, work in a company, in accounting company, to know that, look, that's not for me, you know? I respect people who likes it, and there is a lot of artists into this accounting uh, place, but it's not for me. So
While he worked at this day job, he would use art as a means to escape, whether he was making his own artworks or writing articles for his very own art blog, which turns out he started when he was a teenager and it was going pretty good and building a name for himself in the Brazilian art community.
we didn't talk about views at the time, you know, like we didn't even have like Google Analytics to know like how many views we have. I couldn't know it because people came to me and say, hey, I read your blog, you know, I saw your blog. I used to go to galleries and say, hey, I have this blog, so can I report your fair there? Can I show some like pictures? And said, oh yeah. So I knew that people into the art scene knew my blog, and the blog was the Revolue one, so it was revolue.com. It was already my name, so people start to know about me, about my blog.
While he didn't enjoy this day job, he worked as hard as he could to make sure each project he worked on was the best it could be. But he finally hit a breaking point.
I had a lot of work to do. I didn't have any time for me, even on Sundays, even on holidays. I was working like full time for real, like never stops, like maybe sometimes leaving job at 10, 11 p.m., getting back at 6 a.m. So after 2 years, I said, man, that's not for me, man. That's not for anyone, you know, like that's not fair. That's not real. So I just said, and I had a problem there because I used to work so much time and people didn't come to me and say, hey man, you did a good job here, or you know, like congrats for this, you know, paper or whatever. They just came and say, okay, another job, another thing to do. do it, do it, do it. I just said, man, enough. You don't even say like thankful. You're not thankful for things I've done. So I'm just living. And I remember the girl from the company said, no, you cannot live like this. You know, you have to wait 1 week so we can prepare all your documents before you leave. I said, you can put fire on all my documents. I don't need that anymore, you know? You just burn it. So yeah, this is how I did it. And I just moved it. I said, now, tomorrow, I'm a full-time artist.
And so now that you quit your job, how did you start making money being an artist?
Yeah, well, like what I did, like what I had in mind is because my blog and because I knew people into the art scene, I also knew some people like from like brands. So what I did was something that I didn't told you. My video game into my video game was the Photoshop. I used, of course, play Counter Strike and all these games, but my real game was Photoshop. So I used to play with my friends' photos, you know, like trying to put them into like different characters or whatever. So I knew that I had these skills with Photoshop, and I had my skills of my painting skills. So I used to go to that brands, some stores here in Brazil, and say, "Look, I'm an artist. Don't you want me to create something for a company, you know, or some kind of whatever you need, like some walls? Don't you want to paint some walls?" And I had like the first yes. 2 days before I left my job, I went to this store which used to sell like some clothes and you know like good brands. And I just said, look, I'm an artist, you know, I'm trying to live by my art, and do you need any kind of work, you know, like to paint a wall, or I have some like canvas we can put here. And they said, oh yeah, we are planning to paint a wall. How much is it? I said, man, I really I don't have any idea. And the guy said, okay, so we help each other. I tell you my budget and you say if it's good for you or not. I said, man, it's done. Even before the guy said the price and the value, I said, it's done, man. Let's do it. And the price they paid me was maybe 50% of my work salary. So I said, yeah, we started very well. I said, man, I'm rich, you know? If I paint a wall for every 3 days, I had a wall to painting with this price. But of course, this is not the real word, but I had a good starting. And I always say that art always was saving me, you know, because with that money, I could wait a little more. Uh, I could save more money to, you know, like improve my skills and survive for a little more like months. So yeah, I have this kind of space, you know.
And so when you left, were you nervous? Because that's a really, I mean, you said it was a big company. Like, that's a really stable job, a stable income. Were you nervous at all, or had you saved up money? And also, what did your parents think of that, you leaving and your friends?
Yeah, like I wasn't worried. If you're asking me like now today, even me, I would think, man, that was very crazy. I don't know if I would do that now. But back in the days, you know, like I didn't have this feeling with me. I just left, you know, and said, man, I'm gonna do whatever I'm gonna do, like it's gonna work. Of course, I have my parents who really supported me. I was worried about my dad, you know, because my dad recommended this kind of job or this. And I just came to them and said, look, that's not for me. You know, I've done this like for 2 years without any kind of, you know, like I wasn't feeling well, but I wasn't showing that. So I just told them I've tried to do my best, but that's not for me, and I'm gonna move. You know, and I was worried about that, but at the same time they said, okay, we are with you. You know, like if you want to do that, just do it. So I have the full support of my mom, my dad, even my brother to say, man, just go for it. You know, and since that day I just woke up and said, now I'm an artist. Let's see what can I do with my skills and where I'm gonna go. You know, so yeah, I have the full support of my family.
During this time in Brazil, street art wasn't really respected as much as it was in other countries. So when Revolue's cousin told him he could come live with him and some other artist in London, he jumped at the chance.
I was in Brazil and I said, if I want to do that, I want to do that for like for real and seriously. I'm gonna move to some places that street art are more like, I don't know, more common, or people are more like getting used to it more than here in Brazil. So I moved to London. For me at the time, 2008, London was the, like the place to be as an artist. So I moved there because I had a cousin who was living there. He's a photographer, and he just said, "Man, I'm living here in a warehouse with 30 more artists, and you are welcome to come." I said, "Okay, man, I'm gonna do that." So I moved to London with this 30 more friends in the same house, living for 1 year, and it was the best experience I had in life because I could be like close to like real artists 24/7.
Once he got there to stay in London, he had to take up some school. So he took a course in, believe it or not, filmmaking. And so, what made you sign up for these filmmaking courses?
Yes, I went to study because I had these visa things, and I had to have some kind of any kind of course or something for my visa. I decided to work to study filmmaking. At the time, I thought that if I studied filmmaking, I would get art direction, not just about filming, but I would get art direction and also digital skills that I knew that in the future would be helpful.
What's so interesting is it was during this film course that he returned all the way back to his past of discovering street art, and he started following other artists around again, just filming them.
For the course, I had to create some like videos and documentaries so I could walk with local artists in London, so I could know like their studios, their habits, how they create. So all this information was kind of, I was also adding to my personality, again, not because I want to copy that, but I say, oh, this guy do this, like this guy works only in the morning without any kind of, like psychedelic things or anything, it's just him and the canvas. And this is something that I took from for myself. I respect all the ways, all the creativity ways, but in my way, I prefer to be like 100% sober. I like not even music, I just prefer to be with myself and try to put outside what I have inside. So all these things I could notice when I was like doing my filmmaking course and doing my like documentaries and shooting things in London.
When you have already finished college and started your career, it can feel like a downgrade to have to go back and start over all again with a brand new path. Revolue was lucky to have so many friends and family supporting him in his decision, but it didn't change the fact that he had to make some hard choices. When he was in London, his dad would send him some funds, but the exchange rate was definitely not in his favor, and he would also work some part time jobs here and there to get by. And while he didn't have very much and he was barely scraping by, he was much happier than he had ever been doing the accountant job.
Yes, yes, I felt very happy because I didn't have this feeling, like, oh man, I'm getting back to studies or whatever. I just let it go, Even now, I just let it go. So at the time was perfect, I was in London with a lot of people. I was improving my not just my art skills, but my English. I was improving my networking with people that I still talking now. So I was with this feeling of, like new life. So everything for me was new and was fun, was happy. And again, I'm always trying to see things in a positive way. So uh sometimes of course was difficult. You're feeling like the homesick, you're feeling you miss your friends, you miss your lifestyle, while I was like in London having this life in a very basic way. All my friends here in Brazil was like going out, like going to night, having his nightlife, going to clubs. But I was very happy because I was having something else, which was experience. And for real, this is very, very powerful. It's better than anything. I always tell people, keep things in the experience because it doesn't have value, but it's so valuable.
And even to this day, he keeps that same mindset and he doesn't seek out material things, but instead focuses on experiences and seeking out new friends and projects that bring him joy. So while he was in London, he had to go back home to Brazil for the holidays. We're not going to get into the whole ordeal because it's kind of confusing, but the short is they wouldn't let him back in the UK. Something with his passport and all this stuff, he couldn't get back and he had to leave all of his stuff. Luckily, some friends would bring it back to Brazil later on, but he was stuck in Brazil, unable to finish his film course back in London. But he took this moment and viewed it as a calling to stay in Brazil.
I think it was a message for me, like to say at the time, stay here and do your things here because you have to be here. So this is the thing that I have learned, with that situation.
Once back home, he would figure out a way that he could still be creative while getting the bills paid and focusing on his own art career.
Let me see. I was showing galleries, but at the same time, I created kind of agents, art agents. So I had these agents to create. I was like a kind of art director. So I started to work with kind of brands and things for like advertisement, and I was doing this art direction. So I had my this life painting and trying to show galleries, and having my art agents working for like advertisement company and doing this art direction for brands, movies, and everything. So I had these like two jobs doing like with creations,
At this time, he was running into a lot of closed doors in Brazil while trying to get his original artworks shown in galleries. He felt like he needed to know what the reason was, why his art wasn't appealing to these people, and if he had any potential at all to make it in the art world. So he devised a plan. The plan was to simply take some rolled up paintings under his arm, fly all the way to Miami to Art Basel, and ask galleries what they thought.
And I couldn't have more galleries. A lot of galleries saying no to me here in Brazil, even not just São Paulo, but all Brazil. And I said, man, you know what? I'm going to get my money. I'm going to get all my works, my portfolio, and I'm going to present them in an art fair, because then I can have galleries from all the world, and I'm going to see if I'm an artist or not. I just wanted some kind of answers, like, look, you're not an artist, like just go do something else because you're not an artist. I think this is the best thing that artists can question themselves. Why people would have my work into their walls? What they gonna feel when they see that? In my case, I want people feel happy. I want people feel like inspired to have like a good day, to change like the mood. So I want to change people's mood. So that's why all my works are very like full of informations and mediums. So these kind of questions that I have now are actually the kind of answers that I have now, well, questions that I had before.
Let's remember when most galleries go to these fairs, they're not really interested in getting to see new art submissions. They're more interested in making sales. But miraculously, it worked out for Revolue.
I met a gallery, a Korean gallery, that didn't have my style, but I said, look, I'm already here. They're doing nothing on the booth, so I'm going to talk to them. So I just came and said, oh, I'm an artist from Brazil. I'm looking for galleries. Would you have any time to talk to me, or maybe to give some advice or something that could help me? And they just came and said, oh yeah, have a seat. Let's talk. With this gallery, it ended up they having three of my works, presenting them into the gallery at the time in Korea. So I had a good answer, which was some gallery in the Art Basel wanted one of my works. So this was the best answer that I could have at the time.
And just like that, he started showing with them, and other galleries soon followed. Next thing you know, Revolue had his paintings in galleries all across the globe and was pretty much putting them anywhere possible because at the time, he wasn't too picky. And he honestly didn't even care about the sales of the paintings. He just wanted to get them in front of people that might enjoy them and get some joy out of seeing the works.
One thing that I was very it was very clear in my mind was I wanted my work everywhere. So if someone asks you to have my work, I'm gonna send them. I think that is a very difficult point for artists. They say, for example, in the beginning, let's say the truth, you are nothing into the art world, right? You are nobody. So they wanna, because the artists they think they are good, they think they are, someone into the art world, but they are not at the time. So why do I'm gonna ask, oh, you have to pay for the shipping things, or you have to pay in advance? Man, they're not gonna do that. So it was part of my investment, send the work to them, without any costs for them. So once they asked me, oh, I want to present two, three of your works in Netherlands or in Korea, can you send me? I always say yes, I can send to you. So I send as an investment, and always thinking, man, it's gonna work, it's gonna work, it's gonna work. And then it worked. I didn't want to keep my works in my room in waiting for people to get here and pay for all the costs. It's not gonna happen, never.
The hustle of trying to get his work into as many corners of the world as he could paid off, and soon Revolue could leave behind his job doing client work and focus on just his personal paintings.
I think it was in 2015, because I was selling to people from around the world. And I had this gallery in Amsterdam at the time who was having me into this affordable art fair. So I was making good money compared with the my lifestyle, and also the currency of my money compared to dollar. So I could have a good life here, and I didn't have to sell much works. So if I sell like 3, 4 works at a time, I could live like 1 or 2 months here in Brazil in a good way. So this was a good move, of course, intentionally for me to sell works outside Brazil and have these sales that could support me to have my life here. Was very helpful.
Then, in 2017, me and him would finally meet, but let's hear his side of the story first.
John Paul came to my profile and messaged me and said, "Hey man, I want to buy one of your works." And when I saw his profile, I said, "Oh man, this is very good, like artists." And we just start talking. I said, "Oh man, thanks. Now like I appreciate that because you looks like very very good artist. I don't know if it's you who painted these works, but I said, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's me. I'm improving my skills. I want to paint bigger things, and I like your work. Our style looks like the same or similar." So I sent to him the work he wanted at the time, and then he presents me CB. And during that time, we had a group in on WhatsApp group, and we start talking like we used to talk like every day, about art and how we can create something together and all these things.
The John Paul he is referring to is a Costa Rican artist named John Paul Favez, who I had been chatting with over Instagram around 2016. And it was during one of these chats that he invited me to his solo exhibition in NYC. But the only issue was I lived in Georgia. But luckily, I have great parents who always believed in me, and as a graduation gift for high school, decided that they were going to help me get to New York so I could go to this exhibition and meet John. So that's what we did. Okay, so back to his side of the story.
Yeah, and I think he told me at the time, oh, this guy, he came to the show, he wanna meet me, and he asked me a lot of good questions into like art scene and art world. So yeah, looks like he's really trying to push like hard for like his living or his project. So that's why I messaged you to trying to talk and promote my work, because I knew from John that you were like someone into the arts scene, but in the different side, which was like talking about art, showing, and was for real. That's why your name is Myartisreal, because so many fake profiles and so many fake people. And I think John came to us and said, "Look, this guy is real for real." So that's why I talked to you at the time.
I still remember that day when Revolue messaged me on Instagram because I was sitting in math class posting art on my page and I saw his message. But where that message would take us just a few months later, I had no idea. Soon, I graduated high school and started trying to work on curating my first art exhibition, but I had no idea where to start. So, what I did was I started sharing works of galleries in hopes that maybe they would let me guest curate a show down the road. Around this time, I got to talking with Revolue, and we came up with this concept for an art show, one that would be a joint effort between him, John Paul Faves, and fellow artist CB Hoya. And once we figured out that concept, it was in my job to find a space. The first and only person I reached out to about the exhibition was Ben Krause at Krause Gallery in New York City, and I was blown away when he emailed me back almost right away with a date for the exhibition. So, just like that, it was on, and we all had to get to work on making sure that these artworks made it to the gallery on time. Yeah, and I still think about that first show today. Like,
Yeah, man. That
it was awesome.
Man, me too, man. I always talk about like uh, when you are in New York, the things change. You know about it. So when you invited me, we are because me, John, and CB, we were already planning something. Uh, oh, let's do a show together. Let's create a name. Let's create a band, an art band, or whatever. A lot of crazy ideas, but in the end, we just wanted to show something from us to the audience in America. And then came you. Like that's why I say the universe, they really know what to do. And we have to trust on the universe for real 100% because the universe start make connections first with me and John, and then you and John, and then me and you. All this connection was by the universe. And when you look it back, we say, man, everything worked perfect because so at the time was the perfect time to do that, and was a life changing for me. And I think you remember that because when I went to New York was another big move for me. I was already starting. I started to talk with this gallery from Europe, which was La Pamplona, Lais, that you already know. So I was doing this big movie in Europe and also this movie in America. And being New York was a very huge move. So I had to invest myself to be there. And I was there to 15 days. And again, the currency is good when we sell works and live in Brazil. But when you want to go to America, it's very expensive. So it was kind of, I was like, I made it like an all-in. So I'm going for it. And I remember that I had money to go, but I didn't have money to get back. Let's say like this, like of course I could get back, but I'm saying I wouldn't have money, like to, like live the way I live at the time. So I remember when I woke up during the opening day with Ben's and your message saying, look, we sold three of your works. We already sold the three of your works. So at the time I said, man, we are doing something here.
He's right. I mean, at this time, everything seemed to just fit together like a puzzle and work out the best way it could. And for me and him both, it was a huge deal to show in New York City because no matter how much the internet has changed the way we consume art, it's still definitely a milestone to showcase your work in the Big Apple. Looking back, it was really crazy to reflect on that time because just like Revolue, I was super on the fence with this exhibition and knew that once it was over, I wasn't going to have any money unless we made sales. But luckily, through the support of Ben, everything worked out for the best. So, man, like, how do you feel now? How do you feel in 2023? How do you feel in general about your art career and going forward?
I just feel grateful, for real. I feel like there is everything I could do to be here. I'm pretty sure that I did. Like for real, people who are close to me or people who knows me, I do anything I could or I have in my way to do it to get done. I do it. So everything I can do for having my work in a good way, with all the respect that I consider that I have to have to create a piece of work. Uh, I have it. So I'm just grateful because I know that is not easy, but it's same as all the works jobs people have it. Uh, the difference is that we need to push ourselves and also be confident because no one will like know what is inside you. So I'm grateful to have the creation to every day that I wake up, have this creation on my mind, on my body, and I want to put outside. While I'm doing this, I'll be painting. I need this. I need this from the universe. This is the thing I'm grateful when I wake up and I say, thanks for one day more being an artist, being creativity, being creator, being everything that I can use my imagination or my skills to put outside to people see it. So it's just about like being grateful.
It took many years and a lot of trial and error for Revolue to become the artist he is today. His story is a constant reminder to me of the power of always believing in yourself no matter what life throws at you. I want to thank Revolue for sharing his story, but also thank Ben at Kraus Gallery for giving us both that first exhibition. It was truly a once in a lifetime event. And hey, I'm not forgetting to thank you, the listener, for making it to the end of another episode of the Myartisreal podcast. I appreciate every single one of you. Without you, I couldn't continue to do this. It means the world to me that people care about these stories that I'm trying to tell. Thank you for listening, and you will hear me in the next episode.